I'm gonna make an analysis of Indian Camp. Indian Camp is a short story about Nick, Nick's father, and Nick's uncle George, who lives back in the time where America was being colonized by Englishmen. So the whole plot of the story is about this childbirth that is happening. It is a childbirth with a lot of complications, and the native woman who has been in labor for 2 days, I believe. So Nick and his father are called out to the native camp to, I assume, help or witness the childbirth in some way. And the whole story evolves around father figures and how fathers and children's bond are made, and how important it is, like with biological fathers, for instance, or also how that plays into racial differences. But if we focus first of all on the main character, which is Nick, and his relationship to his father, which plays quite a huge role in the story. First of all, it is sort of very distant, some would say. Right after Nick and his father have witnessed the birth, they have also witnessed a suicide, which is quite a traumatic thing to experience, obviously. But it seems to be quite tough for Nick's father to talk with him about the whole suicide and giving birth and all those like very important matters. It seems it's like the father doesn't know how to approach Nick with incidents like that. So Nick asks him all these very hard questions. For instance, he asks, "Why did he kill himself, Daddy?" And to that, Nick's father answers, "I don't know, Nick. He couldn't stand things, I guess." And they're sort of treating the whole incident very lightly and almost quite cold in a way. But even though Nick and his father seems to have a very distant relationship, I don't think it necessarily means it's a bad one. Because I am of the belief, after reading the story, that the father wants the best for Nick, and he wants to prepare him as well as he can for the world, I suppose. Which are shown in the way he like talks to Nick, and when they talk about what they're about to witness before the whole birth happened and the suicide, he walks outside the tent with Nick and is like talking with him about childbirth and what it's actually about, and what like sort of prepares Nick for what he's about to witness. And he talks about that this woman is gonna scream, and Nick is like, "Can you please stop her, or make her stop screaming?" And the dad says, "Her scream are not important. I don't hear them because they're not important." So I think he's sort of trying to make a statement and make Nick understand what is important in situations like that, and where his focus needs to be. Sort of like a life lesson, I suppose. But I mean, a lot of things happen during the birth, because right after the woman has given birth to the child, it is revealed that the father, or what the seeming father of the child, has committed suicide. And the reason for that is that Uncle George is actually the father of the child. And we know that from Uncle George lighting up a cigar, because at that time it was sort of a tradition that when a child was born, the father smoked a cigar. So Uncle George is actually the father of this native woman's child, and not the native man who is her partner, I suppose. And I assume that the shame from her native partner has just been too much, or the whole situation with him staying by her side, knowing that she's not giving birth to his child, just became too much for him. So he committed suicide as a way of escaping that whole situation. Which is also the whole reason why Uncle George is there, because it's not quite revealed and it doesn't stand directly in the text, but it is through all of these small hints. Because in the beginning it is sort of a mystery why Uncle George is even attending this childbirth, because he doesn't seem to show any affection towards the child or the mother. Like, he doesn't show any sort of remorse to her pain or try to help her. Like, there's not like a love bond between them, and he's just very distant from the whole situation. I mean, it's like he doesn't really care that much. And while you have this native man who is committing suicide due to this incident and due to the child not being his, like, there's a huge difference between the way the two men react. So I think when it comes to what kind of fathers are portrayed in the story, I think it shows like Nick's father, who is caring in his own way, like maybe a little cold and maybe a little distant, but definitely is caring about Nick and him evolving into becoming a man. But I also think it portrays Uncle George as not quite the ideal father, to say the least, because I don't think he really cares that much. I think he feels like he's obligated to attend his child's birth. And then you have the native man, who I believe actually really wanted a child and obviously loved the woman who is giving birth to a child, and the fact that the child she's giving birth to is not his own, I think it's heartbreaking for him because he wanted so bad. So his destiny is sort of a tragedy, while Uncle George is more like, he doesn't really give that much care, and that could be due to racial differences or personality traits. I don't really know that, but at least he brushed it off like it's not that big of a deal. I mean, he lit up a cigar to celebrate, but I think that's more due to traditions of doing it than actually because he's loving and feeling like a father figure for the child.